Anyway, let's do a podcast.
Mate, Dave's outside.
You're kidding me.
No, and this isn't Steven University.
No, it's fine. We'll just add this to the beginning of Steven University, right? So for listeners now, we are currently recording a Nothing But Static, but Chris has just seen Dave. Chris, what's the update?
He's still in the learner's car.
Yeah.
He's trying to park up. He is struggling a little bit, if I'm honest. Oh, he's reversing. He's going. He's realigning the wheels.
Okay.
Tell I don't drive. He's coming in.
He's coming for a
He's
parking.
between.
Is
He's trying for a park. He's
it a
taking
parallel
his time,
park?
But he's trying. Yep. And he's he's pulling in. Is he going to be between the lines? Is he?
Oh my God.
Stop. He's between the lines! Fuck yeah, Dave.
Woo! We always believed in you, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Ah, that's made my day.
That is incredible.
Because we were just sitting down to record Nothing But Static, but obviously Chris made a noise that got my attention, and it turned out it's because he'd seen Dave. So we'll probably...
Yeah, Dave is here.
So this is probably an episode of Steven University. I'm assuming I'm gonna cut this and stick this at the front.
Cut this from. Yeah. Cut this from.
Is he still? Is he still out there? Does his driving instructor look happy? Is he getting a big obvious tick on the clipboard? What's the sitch?
Yeah, I think so. They just seem to be having a little chat, and now he's driving away. Oh, Dave.
Oh, Dave.
Well done, Dave.
I honestly never thought we'd get another Dave moment. What is it?
That's incredible.
It's Wednesday.
Dave,
right? He clearly does it Wednesdays at 6.
Mate, I'm beginning to think Dave lives nearby. Because otherwise, why keep coming back here?
Oh, man, that's awesome. He must just be a listener. He must be a listener. and he heard that you managed to get on the first one, and he's been driving past your house aimlessly ever since, just hoping to get on the podcast.
How pissed off will he be when we move out?
Shit, yeah. He's just going to be driving around all our places hoping to get in front of your camera. Anyway.
Stunning. Right.
Yeah,
so,
that's incredible.
So that's Dave.
Enjoy the rest of whatever, Steven University. Hello and welcome to Steven University. This week we are discussing the first episode of season 4. God knows what the intentions were. Maybe this was, maybe this wasn't. The Kindergarten Kid. Chris.
Well, I certainly hope.
Go on.
I certainly hope it wasn't the finale.
But I mean,
Season 3
my suspicion is that this would have been the third episode of the whatever the next series was. I suspect they still intended to end the last series on Jasper, then do that Thingy and Bubbled, and then this. But who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what the original plan was? Cartoon Network sure done fucked it up. So that's all that we need to know.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's it about, Chris? Before I turn away from the mic to cough because I'm still ill.
Kindergarten Kid, or as I like to call it, Stephen and Paradox Fun Time Hour, starts with them going through the kindergarten. The whole gang is together, minus the cute blue one. They're looking in all the cages. They're poofing remaining corrupted gems. Poofing them, sending them away, blah, blah, blah. Peridot and Stephen look at one in particular who seems quite... Peridot describes it as stupid. It like bashes into things and then basically comes out with force, and Garnet and Amethyst aren't able to capture it, and it goes off. They say that they're going to look for it, and Peridot's like, no, I can do it. Stay behind. I'll do it. So they're like, all right. And Stephen decides to stay behind as well because he's worried about both of them, I think. But he says about, being concerned for the monster, the corrupted gem. So Peridot and Stephen then go through a succession of ways of trying to catch it. Most of them involve drill bits dropping on the monster. Peridot keeps making a miss, etc. Peridot and Stephen have a heart-to-heart about the monster and how it must feel. And Peridot decides to acknowledge that it's a monster, treat it as such, but it still keeps crushing her and eventually falls. And yeah, it turns out Garnet and the rest of the gang were there anyway. It's a really weird one, because I was watching it and so it's fine. It's a fine episode. It's not great. I think the big thing is like neither Peridot nor Steven even learns anything they've not already really learned before. Like,
Yeah.
I guess we see Peridot poof for the first time, and Peridot does defeat it, but she's just had the big Jasper moment in a few episodes previous. So, yeah.
It's the first time she's bubbled
it's
the
fine.
thing, but yeah.
It's one of the most meh episodes of this show, unfortunately. It is literally Peridot and Steven mucking about trying to capture this thing.
Well, it's Peridot and Steven reenact an episode of Roadrunner. I mean, it's just an episode of Roadrunner. I could, and Roadrunner's better. I'm not a fan of this episode. Truthfully, this is my CF. To not use the word so to try and find a way to be able to actually acknowledge the episode without you going silent for a minute. So, but yeah, this is.
Well, in that case, rant away. Like, let's forget what I think. Then let's, if you're quite impassionately dislike it, go.
Well, it's not so much that I'm impassionately dislike. It's just look, whenever this show hits its weaker episodes, they always still manage to achieve something. I either find them funny or charming, or someone learns something, or there's a new power, or there's a cool fight, or the visuals are good, or something about it really, really hits me. I'm not fond of the visuals of this episode. I don't like the design of the monster. I didn't find their poor attempts to imitate Roadrunner to be particularly charming or amusing. I don't particularly like Peridot being a comic foil in that sense. I think just having things continually drop on her is only funny if you're two. I think this is one of those times when letting the animators go off model really doesn't help the show. Steven looks really wonky in so many places. And, trying to imitate the visual style of Roadrunner in the world of Steven Universe just quite simply does not work. And therefore the jarring nature of the visuals is, I mean, the concept at its core and how they got there is fine. We know Jasper had a bunch of creatures in a desert-y environment. Make one of them fast and put them in the desert and have them trying to catch it with contraptions. In theory, I could see how a bunch of writers sat around in a writer's room discussing or pitching episode ideas would come to this conclusion. It makes nothing but sense because you're honouring a really classic sort of cartoon style and all that stuff, and Peridot does make contraptions. The problem is none of the contraptions are that clever. None of them break or backfire in clever or interesting ways, which is what made those Roadrunner cartoons so good, was that it would always go wrong in a way you were not expecting. Like you'd be like that thing is clearly going to fall him, and then something else would happen that would completely swipe Wile E. Coyote off his feet or whatever, and it'd be like, I don't know, there was always an element of surprise to the Roadrunner cartoons, where everything that happens is totally predictable from minute one. I don't think we gain anything out of the gems were here the whole time. That's just a pointless twist at the end for no reason. Doesn't add anything to any of the proceedings. And again, I don't find it particularly funny, and I don't find it particularly charming. And again, I don't get anything out of this episode. I really don't. So whereas other episodes I'm not fond of, I can say, oh, well, at least it's funny, or at least it's this, or at least it's that. This one, I get very little out of, other than boredom.
It also, the gems waiting behind thing make no sense, because they're like, we waited behind and future vision. It's like, well, if you've got future vision, you don't need to watch the whole thing unfold. You just need to come back for when she poofs the monster. If you know exactly how it's going to play out, just let it play out and come back later.
Yeah, and and I just think that it's one of those things where with a show like this, it's fine that this episode exists because it's 11 minutes of my life, and there's a certain amount of the show has earned enough trust that, like, I know next week's going to be awesome. Do you know what I mean? When I first watched this episode,
yeah, cool.
I didn't have to express any ill feelings towards it because I wasn't doing a podcast. I was able to just go, okay, that was that. Didn't do it for me. Next. And that was not that, and that's the beauty of a show like this, is that if it does, I mean, thankfully the hit rate is so high that it's very rare this happens.
I think it's incredibly rare. Even the two I've probably moaned at the most, or at least with the exception of those early episodes, the one you mentioned and Say Uncle. Mm-hmm. Even those, I can dig and see. I can understand the counter argument. I don't agree with the counter arguments, especially with the first one you mentioned, but I I understand the counter arguments.
Yeah.
This does not. It's just so meh. There's not. There, like you say, it's not. It's. I think its crime is that it's not a affectionate, amusing play on Roadrunner. It's not. It's not funny. It's to the point where I didn't even really get the Roadrunner thing until you said it, and I was like, oh yeah. I in my head was thinking of a British reference, an old show called Chucklevision, where they just two people went around haplessly trying to do things, and they just they'd try and paint a wall and end up smashing through it, that kind of thing. There's just, it could have been hilarious. If it was hilarious, it would have been fine. We'd still be sat here going, it's not too much to say, but it was really funny. Cool. But it wasn't really funny, in my opinion. And, like I say as well, the big thing for me is, like, I don't feel, personally, like either character learn anything. We just got affirmation of things. We got affirmation that Peridot's confidence and skills are growing. We got affirmation that, I think, what did we learn about Stephen this episode? Stephen cares about all things. How many times have we seen that? But in a better way.
Yeah.
And that on its own, the not learning anything is fine if it's hilarious. And it not being funny is fine if it has a point we've never seen before. But when you don't do anything new, you just kind of go meh. And as Dan said, that's also fine. Shows can have episodes where it's just like, oh, okay, fine. But unfortunately, we're doing a podcast where we analyse every episode after it. And like, these were always the most difficult episodes of Fringe Observers. When the episode was just like, it was all right, that was much harder than an episode being awful or an episode being great.
Yeah. 100%. And the thing is, it's interesting because like there are episodes that are universally hated by fans. Fans really dislike what's the Lars one where Steven becomes Lars? The new Lars, is it called? Is it that one?
Yes, yeah.
So that episode is really, really hated by fandom on the whole, I would say. I think I described it as controversial when we discussed it, but judging by our comments, as in our comment thread underneath that video, no. That's really disliked. And while we didn't have much of a problem with it because we at least thought it was doing something interesting and I found it funny, and I think you did too, if memory serves, Chris. But,
I think so, yeah.
We can justify the episode's existence that way. It becomes much harder to do in an episode like this because, like I've always said, it's a bigger crime to just be meh than it is to. Do you know what I mean? Like that is that, and I have said this about films
to try
as well.
something new and fail.
Yeah, well, I will always still put, like, as much as Batman vs Superman was a film I hated, I will always be more interested in discussing that and have more to say on that than I will about, like, I don't know, like just a film that I've probably seen
Justice
and forgotten this year. Well, yeah, Justice League, which was straight down the middle and was perfectly watchable, but nothing good either. It played it safe and didn't do anything interesting. So it wasn't a complete stonking mess like Batman vs Superman, but it also wasn't good enough to be worth praise either. So in a weird way, it's almost more offensive to be meh than it is. It's worse to be, not worth commenting on, I suppose. So yeah,
when you're trying to do a podcast.
Yeah, well, especially when you're trying to do a podcast. So yeah, this episode is I don't know. I don't know what else you get out of an episode like this when it comes to that. Like, because you're right. I mean, how could you have fixed it? Could you have given a better maybe lesson for Peridot to learn in this situation? So if we're assuming that we're still sticking with the premise of we got creatures in the desert, so it's going to be like a Roadrunner episode. Peridot has been shown aptitude for making gadgets. Let's have her try to capture a creature. What would you have done with it differently to try to make it function?
You got two options, I think. Either you make it funnier, you make the ways in which they try and capture them funnier. And I know people are going to be like, well, you can't just make it funnier. What does that mean? But I haven't got days to come up with jokes, so I can't on the spot go, here you go, this is a funnier joke.
But in terminology that writers often use, punch it up.
Yeah. You could make the jokes and stuff a bit tighter. And you have Peridot. All confident in front of the crystal gems. And I saved your asses with Jasper. I can do this. The crystal gems disappear. She keeps trying to capture them. It's humorous. It fails again and again and again. She breaks. She says to Stephen, "Look, the Jasper thing was an accident. Like, I am useless. You said it before. I want to be a member of the Crystal Gem, but I have no place. That's why I hide away at the barn, and I've made these things instead. And Stephen says, well, you've made these things. Maybe you can do something there. And she's like, maybe. And she makes a weapon, and with Stephen's help, she manages to capture the corrupted gem with something she made, and that's her ability. And she learns what it is that she can truly offer. And then we have her make extensions for her body, and she sort of slyly smiles, and we don't know whether she's going to go back to her old ways when she has her limb enhancers. You don't need the tag on the end, but there you go. I think that's more interesting, personally.
Yeah, I'd be more interested in watching that than what we got, truthfully. So yeah, and I think so. I mean, there's not as much to say on it. So do we start wrapping it up, Chris? I don't know what else to say about this episode. I really don't know.
Well, is there any? What's the triv, Dan? Is there triv?
That's true.
Let's get 20 minutes at least.
Yeah. So this is the first time we've seen Peridot Bubble, a gem. There's quite a lot of triv because there's a huge number of references to Roadrunner. So like we'll hit some of those. I won't read all of them because it's like a huge list. Her bubbles are shown to be lime green, which makes sense. The gem's bubbles historically have matched their own tone, color. And speaking of gem color, actually, something I want to bring up that's absolutely unrelated, but I forgot to mention it last week. So last week you were introduced to last episode. You were introduced to Smoky Quartz, Chris. Mm-hmm. When we were reviewing the vinyls a couple of weeks ago, I said, "Oh, and a cool thing about the vinyl," and then I cut myself off because I went, "Can't do that. Can't say that. It's a spoiler." Mm-hmm. And then we carried on. What I was gonna say is the vinyls are sort of clear and have they're opaque, so they're coloured, but you can sort of see through them.
Yeah.
If you when I laid them all down on top of the artwork that is the cover, when I laid amethysts over Stephen, his skin tone changes to that similar of Smoky Quartz.
Oh, that's cool.
And I don't know if that's design, intention, coincidence.
Well, does it happen for the other combinations?
Haven't thought of trying that, but I will now.
Okay. Yeah.
It could just be that when they were deciding
awesome.
Smoky Quartz colour palette, they just merged Stephen Amethyst's colour and got there. And that's what's happening on a visual level when I do the thing with the artwork. But it's still pretty cool, I thought. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Anywho, different story. So Peridot's bubbles are lime green. Gem bubbles it's revealed that gem bubbles, when you tap them, are not sent necessarily directly to the burning room, but they're sent to wherever that gem considers themselves home, or considers their home. So for the crystal gems, that was the crystal temple. But for Peridot, it's the barn. That is probably the only moment of the episode I think has some value to it. I really like that.
Yeah,
idea.
That's a cute moment, and that's funny as well. Like to see the cute blue one just look over her shoulder, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I like because part of you goes, oh no, she might not know what it is and pop it and like release it, and then you go, nah, she won't. She doesn't care. She's just gonna carry on reading her book. So it turns out this episode reveals that that Peridot's gem type is extremely resilient to physical trauma and very hard to poof. Although there is a small hiccup in that in catch and release, Garnet poofs her quite easily, which is either a possible continuity error, or it could just literally be that Garnet is that strong.
Oh, that's cool.
So her hardness is actually likely because Peridots in real life are a 6.5 to 7 in the Mohs scale of hardness, which is a stone or gem hardness scale that someone invented, I guess. And it's that's I guess a 6.5 to 7 is pretty tough.
It's good. It's a good number, I guess, especially if it's out of 8.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that number means nothing to me, but I'm assuming because of the context in which it's being presented to me, that's quite high.
Yeah.
Apparently, though, this could imply that Garnet obviously is stronger than Shusho. We already mentioned that. Why would the trivia have the same thing twice? Strictly speaking, since Garnet is nearly a nearly perpetual fusion, it could just simply be a case of 2 against 1 to explain her strength in poofing her that time.
Well, Garnet's proven repeatedly to be strong, so I'd like to think it's just
the amount of
thing.
force exerted on Peridot's body in parts of this episode are a bit ridiculous.
It's true.
And the fact that Garnet was able to evidently exert that much force, we've never really seen her demonstrate that level of strength previously. So comparatively,
look at how the bandits survived in Home Alone. You know.
I know. Have you ever done? There's a video someone did somewhere where they did the wet bandit kill count, and it was every time Kevin does something that definitely would have killed a person.
Yeah, there's like a Honest Trailers briefly did an Honest Action series where they did like they kept track of like serious injuries and deaths.
That might be what I'm thinking of.
They did it for Home Alone, yeah.
Yeah, that might be the video I'm thinking of. So in terms of the cultural references section, this episode is a huge reference to the Looney Tunes cartoon starring Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner. Many similarities, including desert environment, Peridot and Steven trying to outsmart a corrupted gem, but fail to as the corrupted gem always runs away. Peridot falling off cliffs, being crushed by boulders. These are all very familiar to people who watch Roadrunner cartoons. The design of the corrupted gem and her behaviours also seem to reference the Roadrunner. So the blue fur, long legs, ability to run fast, habit of making repeated noises. Obviously, Roadrunner had its little meep meep catchphrase before it was run away, whereas this thing always goes like and then with its tongue. It's a whole thing. It's like almost like a taunt before it then pisses off again. Peridot constructs elaborate devices to catch the gem, only to have them always backfire at the moment of truth. Peridot, in one scene, wrestles with the corrupted gem and in the end falls off a cliff with the corrupted gem in a similar way to which Coyote does, which is when they go over, there's like a weird pause where they react to the fact they're going to go over and then they continue to fall.
Right, okay.
When they hit the ground, a donut-shaped cloud appears. That's another famous thing from the Roadrunner cartoons. The spot where they fall forms a hole shaped like their bodies, which is again very Looney Tunes in general. And the animation.
I must have really just
Go on, sorry.
Not watched Roadrunner as a kid because I didn't get any of this.
Really? Yeah. Well, Looney Tunes in general, actually, a lot of this stuff is quite Looney Tunes in general, I think, and I think it really affected the way they drew this episode. So, like, I couldn't even really compliment the artwork in this episode because I just don't think Steven Universe animation style matches because Steven Universe has always had a weird grounded feel to it, whereas the Looney Tunes cartoons felt very ungrounded. Because even when Steven Universe is doing something spectacular and paranormal, it always feels rooted in a certain logic and reality. And when you break physics to do some of the weird Looney Tunes stuff, that becomes slightly more jarring. So yeah, anyway.
It's bizarre.
Yeah, the animators employed a fade to black transition between scenes, which also imitates the Looney Tunes style. When Peridot is pinned under a boulder, only her legs are visible. This could be a reference, or this is likely a reference to the Wicked Witch of the East iconic scene from The Wizard of Oz when she gets crushed by Dorothy's house, leaving only her legs seen. The raw sound effect used for the corrupted gem, bubbled by Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl at the beginning of the episode, is taken from Varactyl, a reptilian creature from the Star Wars universe. I'm a big Star Wars fan. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to carry on.
It's a big old universe, Dan.
It's a fucking huge universe, but let me just... okay. Okay, yeah. This is the thing that, from the third movie, I think that Obi-Wan rides. Yeah, this is from the third movie. This is what Obi-Wan chases down Grievous on the thing. Okay. Now I know what it is.
Okay.
I just found out its name. It's called a Varactyl. There you go. When Peridot says, I'm smarter than your average Peridot, this is likely a reference to I'm smarter than your average bear, which is obviously a common phrase of Yogi Bear. The book Lapis is reading, Pretty Hairstylist, is most likely a reference to the Pretty Cure anime and manga series. Okay. That one's beyond me. They really love their anime, don't they, at Steven Universe? And I thought I was quite into anime, but they have some deep cuts when it comes to referencing
They're
stuff.
naming shit you've never heard of.
Yeah, literally. Like, what was that one? There was like a cooking one they referenced, and I was like, there's a cooking anime? Of course there is. But, like, do you know what I mean? Anyway. Just running through these. Steven mentions about the endless surfing. Wait, what? Suffering. That makes more sense. I was like, surfing? That can't be a thing. Steven mentioning about endless suffering is based on, Buddha's four noble truths of Buddhism. More specifically, the first noble truth stated by Buddha, given that men's suffering is indeed endless and inevitable. Okay. Now,
fair enough. Okay, fine.
Great. This last one,
right?
I don't think this last one is a reference. I think this is the
right.
fans.
Okay.
For the first time, You know that old rule
Yeah.
we talked about so many times now,
It's
which
a
is
big
if you think
deal.
it's a reference, it's a reference. This one I don't buy. Okay? So I'm going to put that out there. Peridot sends the bubble off to the barn. Steven says, "Happy trails." This is a possible reference to a SpongeBob SquarePants episode named Squidward and the Unfriendly Ghost, in which SpongeBob and Patrick send Squidward off in a bubble out of the ocean. When Squidward is about to leave, Patrick says, "Happy trails." Don't buy it. Nope.
I don't know. I
Happy
think that
trails
could
is
be
not
possible.
that uncommon a phrase.
I'd never heard it before.
You've
But
not seen
equally,
Die
it
Hard?
didn't sound like unfamiliar. Like it felt like it could be a phrase. So maybe I have subconsciously.
But you've not seen Die Hard?
When does he say it in Die Hard?
He goes, "Happy trails, Hans." I think right after he boots him off the roof.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I've seen Die Hard. Love Die Hard. Die Hard.
Great movie.
Yeah.
And I've got-
I think.
Do you think that's a reference?
I don't. No, not in that case. No.
I've got a little continuity. Just that the book that Lapis is reading is actually been seen before, being read by Amethyst in episodes "Keeping It Together" and "Crack the Whip."
Oh, that's cool.
And what's the last one? No, the last one is just this episode links directly to the last episode we saw Jasper in, basically, which we know. It's fine.
Fair enough. Yeah, not well, I was going to say not necessarily a strong season opener, but at the end of the day, it aired the very next day, so people probably didn't view it as a season opener.
No, they probably didn't. And the worst part is that the episode after that, they aired the day after. Stephen knew.
What is the now we have the full end song. Is it called "Love You Last"? Is that the name of it?
Love Like You.
Love Like You.
Mm-hmm. You can look it up. It's great.
Would you be tempted to make that the song?
Oh, you're trying to... because it's a shorter episode, you're going to make me do a song.
Well, I wasn't going to, because I was going to be nice. And then I thought, would the fans be like the fans? Oh, God, that felt awkward and horrible. Would the people that listen... fans. We love you all, but it's like very hard to think of it that way. But would listeners be like, it was a shorter episode, why didn't Dan do a song?
I mean, I'll do a song, but I can I choose it? Can I choose it at a later time? So
yes,
there'll be a
you've got
song, a
chest
mystery
infection,
song added
so-
to the end of this episode. How's that sound?
If your chest infection clears up in time for you to do that.
Oh yeah, I couldn't record that now, could I?
Yeah, only if your chest infection clears up, there'll be a mystery song.
Okay. So there'll be I say mystery just in that what happened last time was you set me the goal of doing Be Wherever You Are, and I noticed I haven't done one since because I really struggled to get that on recorded in a way that sounded anything like anything that was worth listening to.
Fair enough.
So I will choose a song. I can play Love Like You, but I've never actually sat down and recorded a version of it, so I don't know how that would sound. So we'll find out.
Okay, well we will find that out in a second.
I'll try because that's the one you suggested. If I can make that function, I will make that function. But if I can't, then I'll do something different.
I did. That's me being nicer than making you do better together.
Stronger Than You.
Yeah, Stronger Than You. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could give that a go too, but I feel like that would be problematic.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was trying to be nice.
Don't know if that suits my voice, Chris, if I'm being honest with you. But anyway. Yeah, it seems weird to say it so early considering our recent lengths, but you know what? For once, a nice short one's not a bad thing.
Hopefully there's a song.
Hopefully there's a song. So yeah, other than a potential song, assuming chest infection clears up in time, that is everything for this episode. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll speak to you next time as we discuss Know Your Fusion. So, Chris said, Dan, do a song, which I think was foolish because he said, do a song. He didn't say what show that song should be from. So here is a song that I've been learning recently because I've been watching that show, and some of you will recognise it and some of you won't. And for those of you still waiting me to get through the back catalogue of Steven Universe songs, I am sorry. Throw a suggestion to the bottom, maybe next time I'll do one of those. But this time, I'm doing something a little different. So once again, Chris, you should have specified from which show. It's gonna get a little weird, gonna get a little wild. I ain't from around here, I'm from another dimension. Gonna get a little weird, gonna have a good time. I ain't from around here, I'm from another. It's gonna get a little weird, gonna get a little wild. I ain't from around here, I'm from another dimension. Gonna get a little weird, gonna have a good time. I ain't from around here, I'm from another. Yeah, I'm talking rainbows, I'm talking puppies. It's gonna get a little weird, gonna get a little wild. I ain't from around here, I'm from another dimension.